The girl's infection is like nothing I've ever seen. The cause of her immunity is uncertain.
In the world of The Last of Us, there was a single secret that changed the fate of humanity: Ellie Williams' immunity. But what if this immunity wasn't just hers, but a legacy that could be passed on to her future child? Maybe humanity's salvation was hidden in a baby. The tragic moment Ellie's mother, Anna, experienced during childbirth became the source of this mystery. From that moment on, not just a child, but a new hope was born for all of humanity. But what if this immunity wasn't just Ellie's, but a legacy passed down to the generations born from her? What if humanity's salvation is hidden in a child yet to be born?
This question is actually based on some clues hidden within the story and a deep scientific background.
The first solid evidence of Ellie's immunity is hidden in that relentless journey she took with Joel. A tape recording belonging to the Fireflies at Eastern Colorado University showed that the team had moved from there to the hospital in Salt Lake City. But the truly critical information emerges in an audio recording by Dr. Jerry Anderson.
The girl's infection is like nothing I've ever seen. The cause of her immunity is uncertain. However, white blood cell lines, including percentages and absolute counts, are completely normal. And an MRI of the brain shows no evidence of fungal growth in the limbic regions.
These words indicate that Ellie's immunity cannot be explained by a simple antibody response,
That her body had established a balance with the fungus, almost as if it had gotten used to its presence. According to some theories, Ellie wasn't even fully immune. Her body had developed a kind of symbiosis with the infection. One of the strongest pieces of evidence for this theory was that Ellie's bite marks never disappeared. The fungus continued to exist passively in her body and established a balance with her immune system. This situation didn't make her a sacrifice for a vaccine, but rather turned her into a key for the rebirth of humanity. The HBO series took this theory even further. In the final episode of the series, we saw in more detail the controversial moment when Ellie's mother, Anna, was bitten during childbirth. The moment when Anna cut the umbilical cord immediately after being bitten could indicate that the infection crossed the blood barrier and, in a way, transferred information directly into the baby's system. In other words, Ellie's immunity might be a special case that occurred at the moment of birth beyond a random genetic mutation and reprogrammed the baby's still immature immune system. Scientific examples from real life make this theory even more intriguing. For example, a parasite called Toxoplasma gondii can live in humans and animals by establishing a lifelong balance with the immune system. Similarly, in normal pregnancies, the mother's immune cells can be transferred to the baby. This is called passive immunity. In Ellie's case, however, this mechanism may have been taken to a whole new level by the genetic material or chemical signals of Cordyceps. The infection at the moment of birth may not have been limited to the transfer of antibodies, but could have caused permanent changes in the baby's DNA or epigenetic structure. If these theories are correct, Ellie's immunity emerged as a result of a combination of genetic mutation and the birth moment factor. This means that if Ellie has a child, her immunity could be passed on at least partially, or perhaps even completely. Even if the child does not inherit full immunity genetically, they could copy their mother's acquired immunity through cord blood and the placenta. This means that from the moment the child is born, they would be equipped with a defense mechanism against the fungus. And it is precisely at this point that a new scientific hope emerged. In the first game, the biggest problem for the Fireflies was the lack of technology. They did not have access to advanced biotechnology or genome editing capabilities. All they could do was try to extract the mutated growth in Ellie's brain and develop a vaccine from it. However, if Ellie were to have a child biologically, it could have opened an entirely new door, even for the remnants of the scientific community of that era. It is possible to study a baby without resorting to high-risk brain surgery. By using cord blood or blood samples taken at an early age, the baby's pure immune mechanism could have been examined. This would have been the most practical option to pave the way for a vaccine-like treatment under the primitive conditions of that world.
Such a possibility could change the course of the game and future events as well. Ellie's child could be a beacon of hope for humanity. However, this hope could also turn into the greatest source of threat.
If information about Ellie's child's immunity were to spread in any way, the two would have to be on guard not only against infected entities but also against groups seeking to exploit them. On one hand, there could be fanatical cults who see the child as a savior figure, and on the other, scientific or military groups ready to sacrifice the child for a vaccine. In the first game, Ellie was seen as a key to the future of humanity. However, in the first game, that door was closed. In this theory, however, in the New World Order, it would not be Ellie but her child who takes on this role. In this way, Naughty Dog's story would gain a new layer. This time, the stage would be left to Ellie's child, and Ellie's emotional journey would bring the series' most fundamental moral dilemma back to the forefront from a completely different perspective. In Part 1, Joel had saved a child who was ready to sacrifice her life. In this scenario, however, Ellie would be confronted with a completely different moral dilemma. Even if she were assured that her child would not be harmed, the thought of a hidden risk in every surgery or test could cause her to fall into a dilemma about whether or not to make this decision. It is precisely this uncertainty that would create a constant fear in Ellie's heart. The creators could have reflected a similar heavy burden that Joel once experienced onto Ellie, making her feel an involuntary empathy, because Joel too had felt the same fear at the prospect of sacrificing Ellie. The only difference this time would be that the decision would rest not with someone else, but directly on Ellie's shoulders. This idea would also fit quite well with the narrative style of Neil Druckmann, who directs the series. In the first game, Joel's actions remained unforgiven, and Joel left without being forgiven. Such empathy would deeply affect the audience, and it wouldn't be surprising at all if it were added to the narrative in the future. So what kind of speculations could all of this lead to regarding the future? This scenario is more than just an answer to a what-if question. It also carries strong potential for the future of the Last of Us universe. Who knows, maybe Naughty Dog will make this very concept, the idea that Ellie's immunity could be passed on to the next generation, the main theme of Part 3. There must be a reason why the HBO series depicted Anna's moment of infection in such detail, whereas in the game it was merely glossed over with a cassette recording. This scene in the series emphasizes that the bond Cordyceps forms with Ellie is not just a genetic mutation, but a special imprint that occurs at the moment of birth. This scientific detail is important enough to form the foundation of a future game or series. As a result, after Joel's loss, Ellie having a child in her search for meaning in life and finding new hope for humanity with that child could be the perfect ending that completes the emotional cycle of the series. This scenario can also be seen as a continuation of Ellie's effort to break free from the cycle of revenge and find her own path. In the future of the game or series, Jackson or similar communities facing threats from both inside and outside because of this secret could create an entirely new storyline. Maybe even if a vaccine is produced, humanity will repeat its old mistakes. The Last of Us has always explored both the darkest and brightest sides of human nature together. This scenario could take those same themes to the next level and make us ask once again, does humanity really deserve salvation?
So, do you think this whole scenario could really form the basis of Part 3? Or are these realities simply a detail that explains the mysterious origin of Ellie's immunity? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe if you want more scenarios like this, and like the video.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna teach you how to play guitar. When your hands are bigger. And you're not pooping your pants all the time.